This is a Sunday Matinee. I am the Wiz. After reviewing Once with Kim Shackman, I had the idea of making my Sunday Matinee as my favorite musicals of all time. Well, problem is there are a ton of musicals I haven't watched yet. I've seen bits and pieces of movies like Grease, Rocky Horror Picture Show, and others that are well known, so I don't want to embarrass myself by not putting those in because I haven't seen it yet. And if there's anything you should worry about when it comes to saying your opinions on movies, it's having the wrong opinion, right? Yeah, not that has stopped me before. So anyway, I thought, hey, why not tell you guys my favorite romance films instead, since the romance part of Once was the one that I found highly disappointing. Like I've said before with reviews with Kim and with Zero, I have a very soft spot for romance films. I tend to gravitate towards them a lot more and enjoy those types of movies more, for whatever reason that is. Why don't I get into that? And some picks I have may surprise you, others won't. But before I do that, let me start with some that, despite being excellent films, I am not putting on there, and why. And the first one that's going to be a big one is Casablanca. To me, Casablanca works because of its incredibly well-written dialogue and its political intrigue. I'm not saying the romance between Ingrid Bergman, that would be funny, Ingmar Bergman. The romance between Ingrid Bergman and Humphrey Bogart isn't good. It is very good, but it's not the strongest thing in the movie, which I think is the dialogue and the political stuff that is wrapped around it. So for that reason, I'm not putting Casablanca in there, even though I think Casablanca is one of the best films ever made. Another one is Wings of Desire. Wings of Desire is a mood piece. It is a movie that is about atmosphere and tangibility and all these deeper meanings. And the romance part of the film doesn't happen until 20 minutes before the movie ends, I think. So with that, although I love this movie and I think it's an excellent movie, I'm not going to put this into my favorite romance films for that reason. The next one is Y Tu Mamá También, another favorite of mine, a movie I love to death. But to call this a romance film is kind of weird because the film is more of a sex drama than anything else, if I were going to give it some kind of designation as to what it is. To call this a romance, I think, would be kind of wrong to a certain extent. I mean, you could interpret it as one, but I just don't find it to be a romance film. You may disagree, let me know in the comment. The next one, Far From Heaven. This movie is a really good movie, but this is another one where the romance part isn't the strongest part of the movie. It's the setting, it's the way that the film feels, the acting, and the dynamic between Julianne Moore's character and Dennis Quaid's character, I think, is the best part of the film, which I wouldn't call necessarily romantic, but it is about relationships. The Dennis Haysbert part is actually pretty good, but it's not the strongest part of the movie. So I would say, though Far From Heaven is a great movie, I'm not counting on this one. And the other one I'm not going to put in is Annie Hall. Annie Hall, another great comedy, a great romance comedy. And the romance is actually pretty good in this movie. The thing is that it is a comedy about a breakup, and it's not the most romantic film out there. There are romantic parts to it, but I think putting it as some of my favorite romance films would probably be a weird kind of thing. But then again, I have some on my list that you might find kind of weird, so you might disagree, but we'll see when that happens. So again, your comments below on how you think of that. Okay, so let's get into my top 10 romance films of all time, or my top 10 favorite romance films of all time. And I'm going to start off one with something that, unless you're into anime, you've probably never heard of. And that is Makoto Shinkai's 5 centimeters per second. Now, this movie is about an hour and 10 minutes long. It is a very short movie. It is also beautifully written, and it's got some of the best visuals I have seen in an animated movie. It is really good looking. But the romance part of this film is just absolutely heart-wrenching in this. The movie is about a kid who's in high school who falls in love with another student who then has to move away from the town that they're in. And his trying to actually keep that relationship alive despite there being so much space between them. And then there is a second angle that goes on about a girl who's in love with that guy who is in love with that other girl. And both stories are so heartbreaking and so, oh God, they're so emotionally packed. It is such a beautifully done movie, and it's one of my favorite romance films of all time. And whenever someone recommends a good animated film who's into romance, I always recommend this, because this is a fantastic movie. A short movie, but a great movie. Number 9, Michel Gondry's Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. This shouldn't be a surprise to many people, but for who haven't seen it, and if you haven't, you really should. Eternal Sunshine is a weird kind of romance, but it works as a romance in a very distinct way. The film is about a character played by Jim Carrey who wants to forget about his ex, played by Kate Winslet. And how the film gravitates is that while he is getting this procedure, he starts to realize he doesn't want to forget her, because there are certain things that happen in the relationship that he learned that he will find important, that he will want to hold on to forever. And it really is a part of romance that a lot of people don't want to talk about. We've all had the certain people who slipped away through the cracks and we wish we had more of a connection with, but have changed us to a certain extent. And Eternal Sunshine is a brilliant way of portraying that type of romance. The romance that doesn't work, that maybe inside the romance is not great to deal with, but has profoundly changed you. And with that, I'm going to give that number 9. I think it's an excellent movie. Number 8, Paul Thomas Anderson's Punch Drunk Love. This movie stunned me when I first saw it in theaters, because I couldn't believe I was seeing such a great performance from Adam Sandler. But then after watching it numerous times after, I was actually moved by the romance that is between Sandler and Emily Watson in this. Now, I will say that Emily Watson isn't properly utilized in this movie. She has a lot of talent where she has been in other movies, but in this movie specifically, the romance between Barry and, I forget Emily Watson's character, I'm sorry, is incredibly touching, because it is a honest portrayal about being vulnerable when it's really hard to be vulnerable with somebody. And Adam Sandler's performance in this, it gets a lot of praise for certain aspects, but I think in this aspect, it doesn't get enough, because it shows the ultimate vulnerability of a person who doesn't know how to be vulnerable, but does it in the wrong ways and in the wrong times. But he finds that in this person that understands him and wants to be there for him. And he completes himself as the movie goes on, thanks to this person. It's a beautiful movie, and it's something that I think more people should talk about when it comes to romance. Number 7, Jacques Demy's The Umbrellas of Cherbourg. Oh man, this one is devastating. So this is a French film from the 70s, and the thing that is unique about it is that everything is sung. It's a musical, and in this musical, all the dialogue, everything is done in song and stanzas. So when you're having a conversation, it's done in song. There's music accompaniment, and it works so damn well, and the film is absolutely beautiful. But it's also heartbreaking because of what happens in the movie, and I won't spoil what. When it happens, you feel that heartbreak, and then the melancholy way that it ends is both sad but also uplifting. And it's a very hard thing to actually get right, and Umbrellas of Cherbourg does it really well in this. So number 7 for me, Jacques Demy's The Umbrellas of Cherbourg. Number 6, this is not going to be a surprise to anybody. Notting Hill is number 6. One of my favorite romantic comedies of all time. It surprised me when I saw it in the theaters in '99. It is something that I constantly come back to, that I love watching. It is entertaining, it is funny, it is sweet, it is romantic in all the right ways. It's Hollywood, yes, I understand that. And there's some aspects that are unbelievable, but it's one of those things that the movie is so fucking charming, I don't fucking care. I love this movie. I think it is a great movie. It will be something that I don't think after, 8 or 9 viewings I've still gotten tired of? No, hasn't happened yet, and I adore this movie. Number 6 is Notting Hill. Number 5, Ang Lee's version of Sense and Sensibility. Some might say, well, actually, it's not as good as the book, or, the series that was on BBC is better. That's fine. You can have that opinion. I don't care. I will say that there is no greater romantic portrayal than with Kate Winslet and Alan Rickman playing those characters. My God, that romance is so good in that movie. And yes, the one between Hugh Grant and Emma Thompson is good as well. I like that as well, but that one romance is a linchpin for me. I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was an incredibly well done movie. It has got Alan Rickman's best performance in this. Yes, I know everyone's going to say Die Hard, and I understand why, but this is Alan Rickman's best performance. Such a sensitivity, such a vulnerability in this role that I instantly appreciated. I love Alan Rickman in this movie, and I love Sense and Sensibility. Number 4, the animated version of Disney's Beauty and the Beast. I want to make that clear. The animated version of Beauty and the Beast. The live-action one was bad. Probably one of the best animated films ever made. This film has a really striking romance that still works even years later when it was meant for kids. But the romance is so well done, and the feelings behind it are so astute that it still works to this day, even as an adult. I watched this film, God, when I was, 10? And I liked it then, but as time has gone on, I've appreciated this film more and more. And I will always love this film as well, the animated version specifically. I want to make clear, the animated version. The live-action version is awful. But anyway, love the characters. I think Belle is probably one of the best written characters in any Disney movie, really. So yeah, number 4 is Beauty and the Beast. Number 3, the Frank Capra classic, It Happened One Night with Clark Gable and Claudette Colbert. This is the movie that started the whole romantic comedy genre, or the one that everyone uses as the linchpin as to how they make it. The 3-act structure, how everything is timed, everything about this. And the fact that even after this formula is used over and over again, that 90 years later, this film is still outstanding, just shows the quality of this film. Both leads are incredibly charming. I especially like Claudette Colbert in this movie, and she is one of the characters, a character that, and is an incredibly charming character that I adore in this movie. I think it's a great movie, and if you haven't checked it out and you like romantic comedies, you owe it to yourself to watch it. Number 2, the Spike Jonze movie, Her. Now, when I heard this movie coming out and I heard the premise, I, like you, thought that's pretty weird. And the premise is man falls in love with computer. I mean, yes, I know. Or man falls in love with AI. I guess is the more right term on this. And yes, I heard it too. It's like, that's freaking weird. That sounds like it's going to be really odd. But you know what? It works so damn well. It works incredibly well. Not only is the film non-judgmental, but it's intelligent enough to make you understand why somebody would fall in love with an AI. And then they go further into the movie by not making it just like a happily ever after. Oh, and they're so understanding. Like they don't go to that end. They go into other intelligent spaces that I think most movies wouldn't have crossed. And on top of doing that, they do it really well. Her is a special type of movie that I think as time goes on, more and more, it's going to be in like the top 100 films of all time. It's going to take more time for that to happen, but I think this will be an unmitigated classic as time goes on and as technology improves, because you're going to find that a lot of people are going to look at Her and see a lot of what's going on in the world right now when it comes to AI. So I think Her is a beautiful movie. It's an amazing movie. Great performances by Joaquin Phoenix. It's just an astonishing movie that I adore. It's number 2 on my favorite romance films of all time. And number 1, I've talked about this all the time. It is Before Sunset, the second movie in the Before trilogy. I would recommend watching Before Sunrise before watching Before Sunset. You get the more impact out of it if you do, but if you don't, that's fine. I still think it's a great movie. But Before Sunset perfectly encapsulates what it's like to have a second chance in something that you don't regret taking that chance on. And it's something that a lot of romances do, but does it really hokey. But this one makes it incredibly believable and engaging. The scene Ethan Hawke is talking about how he waited for her and she never came, and how heartbreaking and how utterly destructive it was for him that she never came, and how hurt he was so real feeling. Then what happens at the end is just perfect in this movie. I adore this movie so much, and I adore the characters in this too. And I would say it might be cheating a little bit that I'm using the middle movie, but I will say that it is the best of the 3, and I think it's an amazing movie. And if you haven't seen it, you should see the whole trilogy. but definitely give Before Sunset a chance. That is my #1 favorite romance film of all time. What are your thoughts of my favorite romance films? Leave a comment and tell me yours, or email the show at zerowizcast@gmail.com. And that will be it for the Sunday Matinee and this episode of I Am the Wiz. Monday is the Gaming News Roundup, and Tuesday, Zero and I will review the Akira Kurosawa film, The Hidden Fortress. But until then, I am the Wiz, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.